How can we actually have Christ-centered marriages in the world today? Dr. John Trent joins us to break it down. That's coming up. Recent data from Gallup shows that married adults between the ages of 25 and 50 are more likely to be thriving in life. In fact, it's not even close. There's a 16-point difference in favor of marriage. But the percentage of married adults in the U.S. is declining steadily. For context, in 1949, 79% of households in America were led by married couples. By 2010, that total fell below 50%, and now it's hovering around 47%. Joining us now to break all of this down is Dr. John Trent of the Center for Strong Families. John, I know I just threw a bunch of data out just then, but can you help us make sense of some of this substantial shift that we've seen over the years?
Well, absolutely. I mean, because I'm part of it, I'm so old, so when I was in grade school, we were the only kids in our grade school. Now think about this, in our not our class, in our grade school, from a single parent home, from a divorced family. Okay. Well, my wife's second grade teacher this year, 18 out of her 21 kids are either from a single parent or blended families. And so what I'm getting at is that we have grown up over the last several decades, with, you're right. Maybe in the 50s, it started off with, super high percentages of married couples. Now it's gone down. What's interesting is it's really stabilized. And some of the latest research is it's even moving up. And I think a big part of that is, not that single parent, my mom did as good a job as she could as a single parent. So we're not throwing single parents under the bus by any chance. But in National Marriage Week, this happens to be, National Marriage Week. Well, man, there are so many benefits that come to people, just physically, financially, emotionally, when they are married and there's that commitment. So a lot of people who aren't married today really wish they were. Okay. And will be one day too. So there are lots of stats out there and lots of challenges. But the great news is that, boy, if you are married and you can continue to build a strong marriage, it can make a huge difference.
So what was it, John? You mentioned it being National Marriage Week, and you shared a little bit about your upbringing. So what was it for you that prompted your interest in focusing your work and ministry on the subject of marriage?
Well, that's a great point. My dad bailed out when I was 2 months old. I never met him till I was in high school. Used to hate my dad. And then I became a believer, trusted in Christ and just intensely disliked my dad, And then I realized, man, I'm becoming just like him and I don't even know him, And so I think really for me, the turning point was really faith is the bottom line. But it was in that sense, boy, I can remember my mom talking to us, that, hey, when you grow up, you're going to be able to have a great marriage. I never got a disconnect feeling, growing up. Okay, well, maybe I didn't get to see it growing up, but there was always that encouragement that we really could do it. And boy, that's what I want to share. One of the things, today is, okay, all of us are moving from broken to blessed. Do you know what I mean? I don't think any of us come from a perfect home. If your parents did stay together, that's great. But even if they didn't, marriage is something in this National Marriage Week that's such a cool reminder all across the world. Do you know it actually started in Great Britain in 1996, National Marriage Week, and then it came over here and San Antonio Marriage Initiative really launched it across the United States. And boy, now it's really awesome to see what's happened and all the energy around it. So it's really trying to say, okay, maybe you're like me and you didn't, grow up with a great model. Great people. I mean, I never really knew my dad, but my mom, certainly did the best job she could. But, I've been married 48 years. My brother's been married 50 years. My older brother, the same, so there's that sense in which commitment really can take place. We really can move from broken to blessed.
So when was it in your life, John, that you realized as good of a job as your mother did, and we're grateful for the single mothers and fathers who are raising kids. But I want to ask you, when was it in your childhood or in your young adulthood that you realized this is not how it was supposed to be? This is not what God intended it to be.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, for me, I have a really smart twin brother. My mom was a rheumatoid arthritic, and she was dealing with tons of pain. If you've ever seen somebody back then, there was not the same RA drugs, and she had multiple surgeries. And my twin brother decided he was going to help alleviate physical pain. So so he becomes a doctor. But I got to see a lot of that brokenness, and I was such a mess, and then finally this guy, big 6'4" ex-offensive tackle from Chico State shows up in our high school, and he's the Young Life leader. Ever heard of Young Life? Works with high school kids like me that were incorrigible. And so he would invite a bunch of us old football guys to come over to his house. This is in high school. And I remember sitting at the table, and here's Doug, here's Loretta, here's these two boys, 5 and 4. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a family that, I mean, they loved each other. They loved the Lord. We had to pray before we ate. I had prayed, but it was like, God, if you ever get me out of this, kind of a thing. But they really believed something. And it was really looking at that family all lit up with God's light and love. And I just thought, man, that's what I want to do. So that was really in high school that I got a picture of a family all filled with faith, with a marriage all filled with love. Not that they were perfect. They're not. Nobody's perfect. But that was it, looking at Doug Barham and going, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want a family like that.
Well, tell us a bit about the differences in the way the ways maybe the world views marriage, or at least the way the world views committed relationships, and how we as Christians ought to view marriage.
Yeah. Well, the great awesome thing is are you familiar with attachment theory? Attachment theory is kind of the flavor of the month. I train counselors, my doctorates in marriage and family therapy. But right at the heart of it now is attachment theory. Did you grow up with loving attachment? Was somebody there for you? And we can get into this, but man, when you really get what's interesting is at the heart of attachment is what we can have when it comes to our relationship with Christ. Man, when we are in Christ, we get this amazing, Ephesians 1 and 2 just goes through, you're chosen, you're loved, you have an inheritance, all the stuff that I missed out on, okay, you get it. In a relationship with him. So I think really where it begins is, man, how do you become the best you? Well, that's again, when we find out that, boy, I can love like Jesus, I can get this, amazing attachment. And then once you get God's blessing, guess what? Now you can pour it out to others. And we can get real specific. What is the blessing? What does that mean? But that's really where it begins, is that we realize I can reverse the curse. I don't have to, those pictures that I was given, I don't have to live those out. I can change the pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a whole lot more that we want to talk about, including how to protect a Christ-centered marriage. And we're going to talk about that on the other side of the break. Everybody stick with us. We'll be right back with more of Dr. John Trent on Faith and Culture. Welcome back to Faith and Culture here on the CBN News Channel. We're joined by Dr. John Trent. And John, I think there are times in life when we think, well, a married couple might say, we're both Christians, so we're in a Christ-centered marriage, but that's not the default, right? It takes a lot of work. So talk about what it means practically, because I think we can view that kind of as an abstract, like, okay, what is a Christ-centered marriage? Give us some practical steps of what that actually looks like.
Absolutely. And again, like with my wife and I mean, we were both believers. We get married, but she came from a big town alcoholic home. My dad was an alcoholic. I never really knew him, but he bailed out on our family. So we had a clear plan on how to have a crummy home, is and we're the world's most opposite couple. I mean, I'm right-handed, she's left-handed. She's a saver, thank the Lord. I'm more of a spender. She wants the toilet paper to go off the top of the roll. You know what I mean? I just want it there. I don't care. And so, we had all these differences and all these struggles. And then all of a sudden you begin to realize, oh my gosh, in the same place, we kind of ended the last section by saying, man, when you are in Christ, you get filled up those attachment needs that we have. All of a sudden, you find love. You find somebody who will never leave you nor forsake you. All of those things that can help you reverse the curse. But can I give you a couple of real quick things couples could do in this National Marriage Week that'll, so real just practical. So bless your spouse. Now, what does that mean? Well, there were 5 things real quick that are always a part of the blessing. And the first one is just do this, okay? When next time you get to see your spouse, you're listening to this, when you get home, when you see them, just, I'm taking my glasses off and you're just brighten your eyes, okay? Now that seems like such a weird deal, but appropriate, meaningful touch that was always a part of the blessing, but not just physical touch, boy, that's important, but how you look at somebody. It says in Proverbs, bright eyes makes the heart glad. I have a good friend that's a UCLA neurobiologist, and guess what they study is they study attachment, and what they say is love moves at the speed of joy. So when you look at somebody like you're crazy about, I mean, just, oh my gosh, look who's here. This, so brighten your eyes. How small is that? So meaningful touch, and then say it. Tell them that they're valuable. National Marriage Week, this would be a great time to do that. Look at a strength or an ability. Use your words to attach high value. That's number 3. I mean, we need to know so much, all the time. Guess what the origin and creation of affairs is? 80% of the time is somebody at work is telling them, gosh, you do a great job at this. You look super. And then they come home, there's none of that. So we want to use our words to say, thank you. Oh my goodness, look at what that gift that God's given you. Our first month of marriage, for example, I'm not real detailed. I bounced 3 checks. Okay. First month. Wasn't my worst month. I was trying to explain that to my wife. Well, Cindy had never bounced a check. Well, the last 47 and a half years, guess who's kept the checkbook? Because here's the thing. God didn't put us with somebody to defeat us, but to complete us. Okay. So you use your bright eyes and your touch, you use your words to attach high value. Real quick, the last 2 are spoken message. Spoken message is the third one, meaningful touch, spoken message, attaching high value. Then number 4 is special future. Man, I can't tell you much, Trey, how people need to say, I'm going up the hill with you, no matter what. And that's the last one, that genuine commitment, that fact that I'm not going anywhere down the road. And real quick, there was a study at UVA, University of Virginia, and they had this right at the campus there. They have kind of a high hill at the edge of campus. And what they do is they would wire up volunteers, and it was what wasn't a marriage study. It was how do you, excuse me, it was basically a visual perception study. So how high is the hill? How hard is it to climb? Make sense? Okay. So if you're doing it by yourself, guess what happened? They all overshot. They said it was higher and harder. But now you had somebody you were attached to, roommate, person you're dating, if you're married with your spouse, and they're standing next to you now, and they have their hand on your shoulder. And in every case, the hill shrunk. See what I'm
Mm.
getting at? So I think that's what we want to try to do is, man, with our touch, with our words, with special future, saying to our spouse and putting our hand on the shoulder and say, I know we've got some high hills that all of us do that we have to, navigate and get up. But man, you're not doing it alone. I'm going up there with you. Those are all
Yeah.
some practical things you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are all very helpful tips, and it's something that I think we can often fall into, even unintentionally, John, is seeing our husbands or our wives as our everything, which,
Yeah.
especially on Valentine's Day, that sounds so sweet, but really, my wife can't be everything to me, and I can't be everything to my wife.
Yeah.
But it is easier, I believe, than it might seem to make an idol out of our husbands or out of our wives. So talk about balancing making them a priority without making them our sole and singular focus in life.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, absolutely. Because as important as it is to bless, to encourage, to build them up, man, Les Parrott and Leslie and Carrie, our oldest daughter, and I. If you go to marriageweek.org, they have so many resources. But we did a whole thing on how in marriage who you are determines so many ways what your marriage is going to become. So you need to
Yeah.
become the best version of you. Well, that helps them. That helps your kids. That helps you. So the focus isn't gonna. It's not a bargain, which is, I think, what you're saying too, Trey. It's like, well, I'm going to pour everything onto her, then I'm going to get back all this stuff. That's a bargain. Marriage biblically is a bond. And so the great news is that we get to work on ourselves. We don't idolize them, but we can help them grow better and be better. In Song of Solomon, Solomon's wife to be, she starts off and she goes, "Don't even look at me. Turn your eyes away." Well, later on, 4 chapters later, she says, "I am the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valley." And that's because he praised her 40 times in 8 chapters. He praises her. So we
Hmm.
can build into their life, not as an idol, but because it's out of the overflow of what God's doing in our own life.
Yeah. So what would you say to the husband or wife who's maybe listening to this conversation or watching us and they're struggling to reconnect with their spouse after years of just
Yeah.
difficulty? It's been a tough run. Their relationship has been. What are some good first steps toward reestablishing connection?
Hey, I'm telling you, I mean, that's such a great question because for a lot of people, we wake up one day and we're 11,221 miles apart. And how did we get there?
Yeah.
Well, the way you get back is 2 degrees at a time. Just start with one thing. So, in other words, well, we're going to go on a Christian cruise. That's huge and big and expensive, and you're trapped in a room with somebody you don't even like. Well, just start off with just the small things. Again,
Mm.
bright eyes, praising them. Just start off with what we call, again, it's what we call 2 degree changes. And the Lord says, "He who is faithful in a little, that's the one that's rewarded much." And I think that that's a great starting point. Just start doing something small instead of waiting for that one big experience that's going to change everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2 degree shifts at a time, that is great advice. And I think that it's easy to look at something and say, well, I can't do anything, so I'm just going to give up. But if you
Yeah,
take it as bite-sized improvements, like
right.
2% changes, I think then it becomes feasible. It's say, okay, this I can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is great advice. Look, everybody, stick with us. We're going to fit in another break. We'll be right back with more of Faith and Culture. Welcome back to Faith and Culture. We're speaking with Dr. John Trent. And John, as we're wrapping up our conversation today, I'd like to ask if you can share some experiences that you've had helping and seeing couples turn around their relationships that might have at the start seemed like they were over.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, one of the things we do is called a caring days chart. Okay. So here's what you do. Are you married, Trey?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me your wife's name.
Madison.
Okay, so Madison, so what you do is you say to Madison, okay, Madison, what are 10 small, specific, positive things that
Mhm.
Trey could do for you? Okay, so she writes down a list of 10 small, specific, like, call me from work, bring me home a Snickers bar, something small, not fly me to San Diego for breakfast, that is something big, right? And then you do a list of 10 small things, okay, that she could do for you. Well, guess what you've just done? For the average couple, I mean, they're like, well, I've tried this. That doesn't work. Well, that's not on their list. So what you've done is, those are 10 things that make a difference. Just do one a week. Okay, just yeah, I mean, how hard is that? Do you see what I'm getting at? But it's on
Yeah.
their list, and you're choosing to do it. And I remember this one couple. After about 6 weeks, she comes in and she goes, "Gosh, I almost like him now." And a big part of it is actions dictate feelings, not the reverse.
Hmm.
And so you start acting like they're valuable. You start acting like you really care, like you choose them, and actions can begin to reverse those feelings. And that's just a good place to start right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. John Trent, there's so much more that we could talk about, truthfully, on this marriage weekend, on this Valentine's Day. But we so appreciate you taking some time to be here. If people want to learn more about your work and strong families, where can they go?
Well, strongfamilies.com is our platform for helping couples and families and parents. And then marriageweek.org. Marriageweek.org has tons of resources on how to build strong marriages as well.
Awesome. Well, Dr. John Trent, again, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you.
All right, everybody, stick with us. We'll be right back to wrap up this week's episode of Faith and Culture. That is all the time we have for this week's episode of Faith and Culture here on the CBN News channel. Thank you so much for joining us for that conversation with Dr. Trent. If you want more news from a Christian perspective, as always, head on over to cbnnews.com. Never miss any news of the day. And also check out our Quick Start podcast. It goes out every weekday morning, and we cover all the news from a gospel perspective. Thanks for joining us today. God bless you.